Okay, this early morning podcast is coming to you just after the first supermoon of 2018. I just did a little bit of light googling regarding the effects of this particular supermoon, and some described it as something that would be energizing. Full moons are often associated also with the paranormal and with mood shifts and lunatic, coming from the root word lunar. I always find it interesting when you have a conjunction of events as well, like an increase in geomagnetic storms caused by solar flares, as well as um, the effects of the full moon and the new moon. And I left that comment there that was placed uh, a few days ago. The flat Earth movement and that disinformation has been very influential. These aren't just trolls; these are real believers. There is a dark side of conspiracy theory, and that's another podcast. But I do want to speak to that. When I got involved in the alternative media, which really has found itself inside the box. But before I started my YouTube channel, I was doing an Access TV show. So it wasn't, alternative media wasn't even how I would even describe this. It was Alex Ansary. The name of the show was Outside the Box. There's a reason why I've hung on to that, even though I don't really see this as a show. It's a channel, and my name is Alex Ansary. But describing this, though, under that banner or under that flag of being outside the box or outside of being labeled. And there's a reason why. It's about maintaining your freedom. Bruce Lee with Jeet Kune Do, he was he was seeking to express himself, and he would speak about these things as a individual. What I'm describing to you isn't that far removed. It's the same philosophy, but it's not martial arts. It's independent media content, but we gotta keep from, just like Bruce Lee wouldn't want Jeet Kune Do to be put inside the box. Alternative media, independent media shouldn't be put inside the box. There are people that have done that. Oh, if you're an independent thinker and you're anti New World Order, you're over here with Donald Trump. When really maintaining your political independence is the only way to go, regardless of whether there's a Democrat in power or a Republican, and I would say seemingly in power, because they're not really the ones in power. That is the illusion. That is the fable. That is the fairy tale. Okay, we need to be focused on the truth. Now, if we're going to be speaking the truth, we're going to come under attack. Some could say that if we're not being attacked, that we're not working hard enough. But we also want to surpass, this reality of conflict, not just competition, hierarchy, but conflict. And one would think that humanity, a more conscious humanity by this point in time, would be moving forward in some sort of harmony. And things are really in a state of discord. And I'm not in a position to change that. I don't believe that anything that I can say could really change certain things, but I believe that narrating from the observer perspective, right? That is what my role is at this time. And I'm not going to see my role as above or place any type of unreasonable expectation upon myself, nor should anyone do that. There are so few people out there that I would even tune into that are currently producing content, and it's because of the distortion that's out there. I see so many people think that they're independent, but yet they're still so fearful. There's a lot of people out there, and it's very, very sad, that are just eternally suspicious of everyone and everything. And as a result, they don't even see how that is part of the conspiracy, or to create like stride within the population. So there's just a general lack of trust. Who's the agent? Who's the enemy? And just everybody. And people forget that the archons, or the lower forces of this dimension that are operating above the New World Order, right? They rely on fear as a sustenance and the constant fear of each other that we humans, that mind game that some of us are stuck in, right? It's how they maintain their control over us. But at the same time, we as human beings need to see the writing on the wall, and we see other human beings acting out or acting possessed or acting like they've checked out. We have to take appropriate measures. What does that even mean? To some people, it's getting super armed and preparing to fight a zombie apocalypse. For some of us, it has nothing to do with that, but just getting out of these tense population centers. Large populations depended on the grid, right? Depended on, right, the way things have been. Freeways with massive trucks moving things back and forward, relying on oil. What if that oil is cut off and we're sent back to the Stone Age? And I'm not even talking about an end of the world scenario, but it would seem like the end of the world to a lot of Americans. Hell yeah. If there was a coordinated takedown of our nation's economy and our nation's military, whether it be from within or from without, although it is part of the New World Order agenda to bring America down and then bring in foreign troops, right? I do believe that is their agenda, and that would include the participation of the current president, the next president, and the previous president. This is above where most Democrats and Republicans are able to go. There's plenty of people think that they're woke to something, with their Western minds, with a linear not awake to now I'm awake. There's a lot of this ridiculous thinking within our culture. Oh, I'm woke now. I'm a Democrat. I'm woke now. I'm a Republican, and back and forth. And the media works both sides. And it actually takes a genuine independent thinker, not a poser, but a genuine independent, you can quote me. It takes a non poser independent thinker to step back and go, whoa. We could see the program working over here for 8 years with Obama. We could see the program working over here with 8 years with Trump. We could see that, and we're probably going to go to 2024, or we can go to 2020. Sometimes just do have 4 years, kind of like we saw. So I believe that was George Bush Senior, 1988 to 1992. And we had 8 years of Clinton. Then we had 8 years of George Bush Jr. Then we had 8 years of Obama. But the interesting thing is when you look at the break, right, that middle point where it could have turned to the other side, we ask ourselves, did they really have a real opposition? Not that we were for the opposition, not that we were playing either side, but, was there really a debate in some of these circumstances? Yeah, and when we look at the supposed debates, the presidential debates, it doesn't matter what year you want to bring up for discussion. I can't believe that so many people, and I'm just discussing it all now with a single breath, not just the supposed debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, but the supposed debate between Ron Paul and Mitt Romney of 2012, or a supposed debate between Barack Obama and John McCain. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. Never have. Never will. So, we're dealing with probably one of the biggest deceptions that exists that isn't even being addressed within the quote unquote conspiratology movement. The fact that our current political process is an absolute illusion. And those like trying to hold that consciousness in, which is an illusion, like a hand holding an inflated balloon underwater. The hand has to hold it underwater. But if the hand was to be removed, the hand of propaganda, if you will, I'm speaking metaphorically, then the inflated balloon of consciousness would rise to the top, perhaps just pop out and shoot up and maybe even start flying, ascending, if you will. I don't want to sound too new agey, but the spiritual solution is the ultimate solution. So a spiritual evolution, if you will, beyond that suppressed state of consciousness. And what does that enhanced consciousness understand? That this current political process is a show. Those trying to loop us back into the political process, and run PR for the current president or defend the past president as people watch Obama going swimming. It doesn't matter who we're talking about. This is why Alex Ansary is guaranteed to offend the Portland Democrat Antifa, as well as the Republican Trump supporting InfoWars listener. It's unfortunate. I think it's kind of humorous that there are people that continue listening to some of my videos that are of a different understanding, but I'll accept it for what it is. Because I think some people in a few years are going to come around and they're going to see this. I just wish we didn't have to wait a few years from now. I wish now was the time in which I was seeing mindful communities being established, whether it be in this state or others. I'd like to see right now a resurgence in the alternative media, despite what they're doing with the algorithms. What about like coalitions? It doesn't mean that we have to be all on the same page, but people working together, you know, people with intelligence, helping out, building websites, writing articles, helping out on the technical side. Sometimes I just think that they've just legalized marijuana to get everybody stoned, and I'm not anti-pot at all. I smoke, right? But I've been holding this back. I'm not. This is just the truth. Out of all those people though that have helped me with regards to artwork, soundtrack music, they've all been non-smokers. And I just want to say, yeah, I see people are celebrating like California legalization pot, right? But I really see like how do I put this? To put it politely, and there's others that have noted this as well, including Mark Passio, um, there was far more people involved years ago, leading up to 2009. He was really pinpointing 2005, 2009, and I would agree with that period. And then there was the period of Barack Obama, for example, and a lot of reactionary politics to that. And then, of course, now we're in the era of Trump. But it was really in the era of George W. Bush that you saw like a lot more people together, and documentary films being made, and there was less of a taboo regarding certain things. Hence, I get into 9/11 and activate the AI bots. It's interesting because I noticed something that Facebook was obviously wanted me to see, where it seemed like one of those sponsored, paid type of, but was it from Slate? It was from one of the mainstream website publications, and it was giving dating advice to a woman who was saying, "Help! My boyfriend or the person I'm seeing is a 9/11 truther. What do I do?" And I thought it was interesting that they felt the need to demonize people thinking for themselves about that day to such an extreme to where Facebook was literally promoting that type of an article that could pigeonhole someone into a dangerous category. And I think it's unfortunate that a lot of people that have gotten involved in 9/11 truth, for example, that they have forgotten about the victims of war. And that's what 9/11 truth is really about, not your conspiracy being right or your theory about the towers. And I find it really sad that people use 9/11 to just catapult their own fringe theories about what really happened that day. And that's all nice. And some of those things need to be explored. But ultimately, the deceptions about that day has led to millions of people being killed and eradicated off the planet. And you have people that are 9/11 truthers that also believe some of the propaganda that most of the immigrants in the United States are sleeper agents just waiting for the right moment to get the signal to implement their plans of terrorism. And I'm telling you, this is the truth. A lot of people do believe that a lot of current Islamic immigrants are just waiting for a signal, kind of like some sort of a smoke signal. And that's really unfortunate. So they don't even understand the purpose of 9/11 truth. And years ago, I thought that if someone was a 9/11 truther, that they would be compassionate to the people that have been removed off the planet. And I've found out in recent years that that's not the case at all. That they can use that for their other conspiratorial ideas, but while demonizing whole groups of people or Afghans. They may not even look into the fact that, well, the government has allowed the killing of a lot of innocent Afghans while doing dealings, tradings, running drugs with warlords that trade little kids. We're talking about the homosexual pedophiles and the really sick stuff. Well, that's not right to allow innocent people that aren't doing that to be just eradicated and thrown out of existence. Where are people showing concern for 90% civilian death toll, for example? And that is the ratio. And then there's still, this constant demonization of people that have done nothing to us on 9/11, and not just Afghanistan, but other countries. So, right there alone, and everything I've just said, that's like not on the radar of a lot of people today. And then here's the interesting thing. There are people that during Obama's administrations were criticizing Obama for the droning, and they would speak this way as a part of their rhetoric against Obama. And then as soon as Donald Trump became the president, they stopped talking about the drone attacks. And so what's happening now is kind of a collective madness where people are acting like they're anti-establishment, but they're self-censoring, in fact, more than ever, and more than ever consumed with their own ego. So it's created quite a disturbance to the point where some people have tuned out completely of news and information. I would say that we're in like between cycles. This period marks the dark ages. The dark ages that we're in. Perhaps we'll come out of the dark ages. Perhaps things will be different in a few years. But when you have this level of propaganda disrupting communities, getting in the way, and people not realizing when the social media algorithms are designed to custom tailor their interests, their attitudes, even their angers towards certain groups. If they don't even see at this point that they're being played, it's difficult to see hope. It's difficult to have faith in other human beings. So one could say the war is on, if you will, to turn us into a very untrusting population. I would say that we just need to use caution and have balance. What I can say as a person who's been contacted by people over the years, there's been a decline in general psychological stability with a lot of people that have sought to contact me in the physical. And it's caused a very great concern to the overall well being in mind, body, and spirit. Um, I would have to go back to it's difficult to say when things were different for me and things were a little bit more stable. To be quite honest, as long as I've been doing videos of this nature, I've suffered. I can talk about living in Portland where at one point I was actually doing programs in my room or wherever I was renting a room. And you'll know my voice travels as it does here off the grid. So in those types of situations, it was difficult for people to share a place with me or for me with them or for them to even know that I was having the thoughts or sharing the views that I was on cable access TV, which I started doing in Portland before there even was a YouTube. And I wanted to bring that up as well, that is what I started doing first before YouTube even came on the scene. It was just kind of a quickening, I guess, a synchronicity for a lot of us that were born into this time space reality to get involved and be in our own media. And the tools have obviously made themselves available in a number of ways. But just so you know, YouTube isn't the only means of the last few decades in which someone without a large income could be their own media. Some of you have already heard of low power FM. Some of you have never heard of cable access television. Um, the reason I brought that up, and I was thinking about this earlier, whether you're on the internet, someone's on the internet trying to reach someone, or whether someone is broadcasting from the community to the community. How do I put this? It's kind of a complicated idea. It's early in the morning at 7:06 a.m. But now that I've done both of those things, then the late Tom Petty, and he has that song, "A Face in the Crowd," and there's a meaning behind that song for those of you that are familiar with "A Face in the Crowd." So I've walked that line, so to speak, and the majority of the population is still absorbed by mass consciousness, and this can be understood from the microcosm to the macrocosm. As a public speaker speaking to a community that is mostly within their surroundings of 10 miles, like I was on Access TV, right? I understood then what it was like to be isolated from those that were within earshot of my message, within a few miles, specifically within my community. Um, but to then, of course, go to the experience of primarily everything being on the internet. And in that situation, I've heard other YouTubers talk about this as well. The loneliness and the technology connection, that those that find themselves receptive to the message, or those that are tuning in, are usually far, far away. That are not in the local town community. And it's just interesting. It actually took me a while. I really don't know where I'm going with this, but I am going with this, to pull back from that connection with Portland. And I felt my role was there to be played, right? But when time changes, and when it's a new year or a series of new years, and it's no longer 2000 something or 1990, right? We may need to be somewhere else physically, as well as psychologically, as well as spiritually. So there was a time and a place for me to be in Portland, to be speaking to that particular demographic. I believe that. And that was a huge part in me stepping out of Portland and then stepping into new shoes. And whether you're a media person that shares controversial ideas that can get you targeted to a certain degree, or you're just listening to this channel identifying with the off-grid experience, of trying to get out of or move on from the place that you've lived your whole life. It takes a certain amount of strength. It may not be money. It may be something spiritual or something within. And that's another deeper conversation, but it's not necessarily what people think. And a lot of people think like a certain amount of money and maybe a girlfriend to go with you and maybe have it all planned out. And, it was for me a sense of it over time. It wasn't overnight. It was over time. That sense of feeling ejected and rejected by a large supposed leftist progressive town that I saw as more of a zombie apocalypse, literally. And the more I spoke about it and was critical of the whole Portland archetype, right? The whole, oh, we're so, oh. And if you watch my old videos, you'll see me doing that a lot, calling out the fake Portland spiritual, a lot like what a lot of you think of as the fake spiritual teachers on the internet and the fake this and the fake that. And I was calling a lot of that out early on, and that isolated me in a big, big way from the Portland society. Now, if I was different and I spoke of Portland in a different way and even played up the nostalgia, hell, there would be a different place at the table, probably, for me in the Portland society. If I wanted to be a different human being, there's a lot of different options that are available. If I was on a different path also, and speaking of different things, I could have progressed within the alternative media to where I could have worked with certain names in the alternative media, right? But I think that my soul would have to be compromised to work with certain people. Do I even need to mention InfoWars? But it's been well over a decade since I saw something like that even being possible, or even a positive. So we would have to go back to at least 2007, before someone like Alex Jones started getting really dark and really deceptive. And it wasn't until 2014 and 15 that I think that the worst of Alex Jones started to come out with the race baiting. And right now we're seeing the worst of it to where he's in self-destruction mode. So now that I'm on this topic, this is significant because our perspectives, including mine, can dramatically change in a decade or 2 decades. The very person that could inspire us literally to get involved in, he wasn't the only one, right? But here I am so many years later, and I see the satanic hold over him. Now I look at that and the change in my own perspective like a 180. But within that, I also see the good and the bad. I see the good and the bad in everyone and everything, and a lot of situations. And you could kind of think of it as a yin yang or a yin yang, the Chinese symbol with the white and the black, one kind of a sense of balance between two extremes. And I think that's what's forgotten as well. On the topic of the supermoon, I did want to make time to mention this. I was looking up because I do have a tooth issue, a broken tooth, that hopefully there may be some mediation for it. Um, However, that's not happening right now. So I'm using apple cider vinegar, um, doing some coconut oil pulling, but that's not going to make her teeth grow back necessarily when there's a hole in the tooth. Like a hole in the tooth arguably can help the enamel, maintain the enamel, but about growing like new teeth, that's not so proven. So the issue is a cracked tooth, and I'm noticing with the full moons, and we just had a super moon, we're still feeling the effect of it. The pain of the tooth will be more apparent. This can also be seen metaphorically. The idea of a full moon or a super moon bringing more energy and attention to something that needs our focus. Something that needs our focus, something that needs to rise to the surface. Sometimes pain has a purpose and isn't to be suppressed. So some things like, super moon or a full moon, or in particular, recently I've been talking with a friend about the new moon, and we've been feeling an increase in emotions within ourselves and observing others around new moons. So that's very, very interesting. So I just have been noticing now several full moons in a row seems to be the period in which my tooth infection acts up, a period in which I need to be more, of course, flossing, brushing, coconut oil pulling, maybe a little swishing with apple cider vinegar. Of course, salt is also mentioned, as well as using clove oil. And I have a little mix that mixes clove oil, oil of oregano, and cinnamon all in one. And that's something that I would definitely recommend as a more natural toothache solution. I can't believe that Walmart sells that weird red stuff in the little syringe-like capsule, but there's crap you can end up buying as well. So I'm gonna conclude my thoughts here. As I mentioned in a previous video, we need to focus on being human beings and not overly automating ourselves. And I like to tap into that new innovation. Like YouTube was an innovation for a lot of us, and we got on board and started building up our subscriber base, and we started reaching people around the world. And it's like there needs to be an evolution of the way that we do what it is that we do, right? I started with Access TV and talking to a Portland audience, and then I pulled back from that and have been putting my energy instead into YouTube while living off the grid. Different medium, different audience, different location. Now I'm thinking about the new cycle because we are in between ages and how to evolve the message. Internet, beyond the internet. I mentioned several years ago Access TV for those of you near Access TV centers. Perhaps some of the things that I share here with your help and your support. But it seems that very few of you are near Access TV centers that are still in operation today. So the question is, and this is something for the audience to ponder, how can we continue to reach people in the age of the new social media algorithms? Because it's through word of mouth. That is traditionally how things spread. It's not through robots and it's not through automation. It has always been through word of mouth. Always. That's what goes away in the day and age of the digital apocalypse where we let everything automate and let us tell us when something's been uploaded, but it's through the direct engagement that ideas spread. That would be you sharing podcasts. That would be you sharing videos and sharing links that you think other people should see, posting on Reddit, thinking of new websites and new places where videos should be uploaded, new forums where people should be having conversations and planning conferences and, you know, maybe even talking about camping trips, people of like minds on these large forums where thousands of people are looking for thousands or other people, friends, allies. Think beyond politics. Think beyond activism. Think beyond off the grid. Think just humans trying to find other humans that are still human, that still have that goodness retained, that are interested in seeing the world be a better place. There should be more focus on how we can do that. all I can do, right, is be a cheerleader for that idea, work to spread those ideas, and to encourage other people to do their part. And your part does not have to do with necessarily have to do anything to do with alternative media. It could be art, it could be something else other than this. It's just that it's something that you're part of it in some way, shape, or form. And I'll hold my thoughts at that.